We're exploring the trade possibilities for the 2025 NFL Draft today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, happy National. Kyle found the new mock draft simulator. That really gets him going.
It's a good one.
Sticktothemodel.com. New draft simulator. If you're here through the final couple weeks before the 2025 NFL draft. 2 weeks, Joe. Yeah. That's it. 2 weeks. Well, technically 15 days, but.
Yeah, I did a radio spot this morning, and the lead up was, we're 15 days away from the 2025 NFL draft. I said, what?
Yeah, it's running out of time.
Yeah, I know there's always an urgency to get to the draft. I'm excited about it too. But then, like, when you're in this position, and maybe not you because you've been on top of it, there's always this crunch. It's like, man, I got to watch more players.
Well, so it's going to come, and then they're going to pick the players, and then your list of players to watch is going to get pretty short pretty quick.
So yeah, we'll deal with it one way or another.
But in prep for the 2025 NFL Draft, we are today looking at specifically the first round and kind of the potential trade market that exists here. And I think there's a couple different interesting storylines that we'll dive into between quarterback teams that are incentivized to move for quarterbacks, other teams in other conditions, but then also really just kind of the supply and demand when you consider you need extra draft capital to need extra draft capital versus the standard one pick per round. But it's helpful to be able to have more fluidity up and down the board when you have teams that have more assets on day two. So, what does that look like? And then really with this class as a whole, will it make it easier or harder to move up and down the board, Joe?
Yeah. And I think generally speaking, when you consider which teams are entering the draft with a bunch of capital and which ones don't have as much, it feels like the right teams. Like when I look at the top of the board and who's got all the picks, it's like, yeah, they should have all the picks. They should have all the ammunition. I look at the bottom and I think to myself, yeah, those were playoff teams that went on pretty good runs. They shouldn't have as much. So I feel like, and that's probably a big consequence of the fact that we're still in a position where every team in the first round owns their organic first round pick. So you don't have those huge, pivot points where all of a sudden some team has multiple ones and that skews, really who's got the ammo versus who doesn't.
So on the extreme ends of the polls, Titans obviously sitting with the number one overall pick, but then having the first pick in the fourth round, which is effectively a third round pick, a late third round pick, but then having another fourth round pick and then having 2 5s. According to, this is the Rich Hill chart, correct?
Yeah.
Have the top spot in the power rankings, whereas Minnesota has their first round pick at 24. And then the rest, they only have 4 picks, period, in general. They then have 97, 139, and 187. That's kind of the extreme ends of the polls here.
Well, in Minnesota's fascinating because they've done a lot to build up that roster.
Yeah.
But they're still in that unique position of a quarterback on a rookie deal. And how they play this is fascinating because I think they've been pretty intentional to get specific players, obviously with the Dallas Turner trade and some of the free agents that they've been able to acquire. But are they in a position now where they want to really kind of balance things out and move back? Are they a trade back team, or is this a team that's pretty focused on being very intentional and specific like they've been for the last few years?
So they have generally drafted for volume the last couple of years. This past year was McCarthy and Turner at 10 and 17. Those are the only top 100 picks they made, though. Then you go to the year prior. They didn't have a 2. The year before that, they had a 1, 2 2s, and a 3. And then you're a 1 and 4 3s, and then 3 4s in 2021. So that's kind of their 4-year rounding into year 5. And with a younger roster in some spots, but then getting aggressive and trying to retool with veteran players. Does this kind of feels like a team for me that if there was the right player at the board, they might be incentivized to just move up and go get that one guy and do like kind of the New Orleans, right? Like, really, what else are you going to get in this class with what the state of this roster is?
I don't know. The hard part for me about that idea is it requires a level of arrogance that I'm uncomfortable with, just because
this one guy's gonna.
Yeah, dude. This is the one player, man. We just look at any draft and scroll through it, and 3-4 years ago, and see how these things play out, man. That I loved the draft, but there's a very uncertain nature to it, and because of that, I want as many picks as possible to have as many chances to get it right. I had somebody that messaged me the other day and said, the Bills should go trade everything they have to get to the top of the board and get Abdul Carter. They're like, the Bills need a Chris Jones-like player. And I'm like, I think the fact that Chris Jones was a second-round pick tells you exactly why you shouldn't do that,
Right.
So there's like I said, I'm intentionally using the word arrogant because I think there is a level of arrogance required when you do that type of stuff.
So hear me out, though. Okay, let's say, hypothetically speaking, Will Johnson gets past, I don't know, in that Miami, Indy, Atlanta, Arizona block for whatever reason. Minnesota, go get him. Be a player that's the kind of player at the right range of the draft. I'm not saying give up your first round pick next year and empty the chamber next year. But if you could do it with a day 2 pick next year, 97 and 24, and can you get up into the late teens and go get a guy like Will Johnson? Like, that kind of scenario for me is the one where it'd be like, yeah, you might as well just like go do that thing.
That's a circumstance that's unique because I think very highly of Will Johnson. I think that's to me, probably every bit of a top 10 player in this class. And so that's a different conversation than, where you do the Marcus Davenport trade.
I agree completely. Yeah.
So
which would not advocate for.
Exactly.
But there's do you think this class in general helps or hurts the likelihood of moving? Because we've seen some classes where what was it, 2012 or 2013, where like you could come way up for just like a singular day 2 pick, and then there's other years where you've really got to pay a handsome price.
Yeah.
To get to move up or down the board any significant amount more than just a handful of picks.
I think where this class helps increase the possibilities for trades is that we don't know where the quarterbacks go after number 1. We don't know if Shedeur Sanders goes 2 or 3 or if he goes later, right? And later could mean a lot of different places. What is the NFL's real appetite for Jalen Milroe and Jackson Dart? I think those 3 players and their availability at certain points in the draft change things, because if you're Cleveland and the Giants and you're like, I don't know about Shedeur or whatever quarterback.
What
What's that?
What are they like?
That was, all right. Touche. You're like, I don't really know about the Shedeur Sanders at 2 or 3, especially when you have blue chip talent in Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter. But then, Shedeur Sanders at the teens, end of the first round, that's a different conversation for you. Mm-hmm. You have the most capital. The Browns are sitting there with the second most capital. The Giants are third. You don't have a quarterback. Now you pair Abdul Carter with the quarterback. You pair Travis Hunter with the quarterback. To me, it's where those guys fall that really, I think, dictates trade opportunities, big trade opportunities versus, okay, we're going to part with a 4, move up 3 or 4 spots, make sure we get a particular guy that we like.
Well, let's go the quarterback route next. I know we're going to break, but there's a trade that happened not too many years ago that I think kind of gets you into an interesting conversation where maybe this starts to come on the table. You want to get into that after the break?
We shall. Stick with us.
All right, great.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many ways to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after your game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. And, folks, of course, the NBA playoffs are here. You've got the Major League Baseball season that you can check out. There's also NFL draft prop bets that are available now on FanDuel. I started to peep those earlier in the week, and there's some spicy stuff to get into there as well. So, folks, don't miss out. Head on over to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
So, and it seems like, Joe, that is the buzz right now, is that the Giants and Browns at 2 and 3, maybe not thinking quarterback, taking advantage of these top of the board players that are available in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter in whatever order. And those are from the Rich Hill power rankings. They have the second and third most draft capital. And that comes not just because of, well, you have picks 2 and 3 in the draft. Cleveland has 33, 67, 94, 104. Pretty decent block beyond pick number 2. And then the New York Giants have 3. They have 34. Then they have 2 3s, 65 and 99 with the comp pick for Xavier McKinney. And then they have 105. So do you know what trade I was referencing before the break?
No.
The Lions-Vikings draft trade, the Jameson Williams trade.
Yeah, it was
from
a weird
2022.
One. Yeah.
Where Minnesota came up from 32 to go to Detroit came up from 32 to go to 12. And that trade was 32, 34, and 66 for 12 and 46. So I think that's when it becomes interesting. And it wasn't for a quarterback. So like maybe the cost becomes, you have to pay a higher cost. You get a lesser pick back in addition to like, it was 12 and 46. Maybe that second pick's a lower pick.
I still don't understand how they got 46 back in that trade, but
right. But you're only what, 2 or 3, 1 or 2 spots off of that with these teams' second pick. You know, Cleveland being at 33 as a starting point versus 32, and the Giants being at 34 versus 32 as the starting point. I think that kind of opens up maybe the blueprint for how high could you get to go get out in front of Pittsburgh or the Rams. And the challenge about those two teams is, according to the Rich Hill chart, they have the third and fourth least amount of draft capital of any team in the draft this year. And not just because they're picking in the 20s.
Right.
Neither team has a second round pick right
now. One thing that I think is very fascinating to bring up, not only because I want to slander the Patriots, but I do want to kind of, I think it's really fascinating. So one of the worst wins in recent history was the Patriots beating the Bills in week 18. They had the number 1 pick in this draft completely locked up. And now they're picking 4. And we know, based on what's happened, that the quarterback that all of these teams wanted, the Titans, the Giants, and the Browns, they wanted Cam Ward.
Yeah.
So not only did you win that game and you're picking 4 and you're sitting there crossing your fingers that one of Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter gets you at 4.
The Joe Milton trade compensation.
Listen. You missed the opportunity for those teams to be bidding against themselves to get to 1 where you only have to fall back a little bit, or you're still going to get Carter or Hunter plus the trade details that you would get back.
Man,
it's an absolute killer.
I'm sitting here looking at it and I'm thinking you're getting an extra top 35 pick in this class at minimum, because you're going to get the second round pick to move up to 1, probably an extra 1. And then probably one of those early 4s that's a fringe top 100 pick.
Every bit of it. Yeah. What a horrible win.
thanks for bringing that to my attention. It's a little extra hump day bump. Get me up in my chair here.
As the vibes are good in New England, let's throw a little wet blanket over them.
Yeah, why not? But I guess that's the most interesting thing about the quarterback trade is the hypothetical quarterback trade. Is say we're talking strictly through the lens of Shedeur Sanders right now, right? Yeah. Like he doesn't go 2 or 3. Your landmines at 6 and 7 don't feel probable. Now you're kind of looking at 9 with New Orleans. If they go a different direction, that's when I think this scenario comes into play. And can a team picking 33 or 34 coax a team in the teens to come all the way out and outbid to the degree that's necessary versus like, what if Pittsburgh has to just play defense, right? And they say, hey, instead of going down 6 or 7 spots, you got to go down 17 spots to take the Browns offer, right? Like, does Pittsburgh have enough to stave that off? Would a team want to move down that far? How much would you have to offer? That's where I think you do have the chance for a big value trade. And it's really a question of those teams that in the teens, if the Browns start calling and Pittsburgh gets wind of it and they want to play defense to go get a quarterback, they have to hope that the right team is on the clock and has their eyes on a player that they're probably thinking they can get at 21 as compared to having to go into a different tier of talent at 33 or 34.
Kyle, I think another team we kind of mentioned the Giants, the Browns as teams that could move back in and do this type of deal. The other team that I'm not sleeping on, and not necessarily a pick 9, but it's the New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
They own pick 40. We know Mickey Loomis loves to trade up because then you would really make sure you get a player you like. You wouldn't want to trade back and admit that you're taking a lesser player. But they have a need at quarterback, and I wonder about them at pick 40. And if they wanted to get back into that first round for a quarterback, and you look at exactly the teams that don't have much capital, the Rams, the Commanders, the Vikings, those are the 3 teams in terms of like the least amount of draft capital per the Rich Hill chart. And the Rams are picking 26. The Commanders are 29, and the Vikings are 24. You're telling me that Mickey Loomis wouldn't move up from 40 to go get a quarterback? If those teams had the interest in doing it, that's kind of another scenario that I can't help but consider.
Well, the other side of that coin is the Rams have done work on Jackson Dart. And they're a team that is kind of rumored to. So we're talking about Shedeur Sanders and kind of the threshold, the point of no return is that he's got to get past New Orleans at 9 for kind of the trade conversations to start coming into play for a team to come up for Shedeur. What's the point of no return where the trade conversations start happening for Jackson Dart? Because you're talking about, does he have to get past Pittsburgh for teams to start calling and be like, hey, we got to get up in front of the Rams? But we know Pittsburgh didn't take him in the same way that, hey, Shedeur's got to get past New Orleans, and then we got to get up before Pittsburgh gets up or Pittsburgh takes him.
If he gets past Pittsburgh, that puts the Vikings at 24. That's the team. Like they're sandwiched between Pittsburgh's 21, the Rams are 26, Chargers, Packers, Houston, and Minnesota, the teams in between. That feels like the strike zone.
Yeah.
So whether you're Cleveland, you're the Giants, you're the Saints, or the Raiders at 37. Next segment, I want to have a big conversation about the Raiders. But for now, we can at least invoke them. Like, that's the sweet spot, man.
Well, I think the thing that works out well for New Orleans in this conversation about being a potential up from 40 team is they have 71, 93, 112, and 131. They have 2 picks in the third and the 4th round. So I think for them, getting into the Minnesota range is much more likely than getting up into the teens like we were talking about the Browns and the Giants doing. But they have the capital to do it. And as you've pointed out, if there's one thing we know about Mickey Loomis is the fewer draft picks you make, the better, because that means you're getting the players you really like and you're going up and getting them.
Mickey loves it. Okay, on the other side of it, we want to get into some other teams. Kyle, I want to talk about the Raiders. I have some big thoughts on them. So we'll do that and a whole lot more here on the other side of it, folks. Please be sure to stick with us. You've probably heard of Chewy. They really do have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Whether you're shopping for food, treats, or even pet healthcare, Chewy makes it fast, easy, and affordable. With over 100,000 products from all your favorite brands, Chewy has everything you need for your pet, from food and treats to toys, beds, and grooming. And it's not just dogs and cats. They've got supplies for birds, fish, reptiles, and small pets too. Chewy also makes it easy to manage your pet's health with prescriptions, telehealth, vet visits, and even in-person vet clinics rolling out nationwide. Plus, this auto ship is a game changer. You can set up automatic deliveries for food, treats, or any essentials so that you will never run out, and it's easy to cancel or change at any time. I got 3 dogs at home. That is super convenient. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. Right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewy.com or clicking the link in the description. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping by clicking the link in the description. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details.
Also, coming out of the break, wanted to give a tip of the cap to Dane Brugler today, who every year puts out his NFL draft guide, does it for The Athletic now, and outstanding labor of love. I've been there. Now, I haven't done it to 400 players like Dane has. I've done up to 325 in a season, and that's why Dane's one of the best. So I know it's a big day for him to get that out, and it's a national holiday for draftniks everywhere. So happy Beast Release Day to Dane Brugler.
Beast Release. What a
yeah.
Tip of the cap. That's a heck of a project. Must have for anyone who loves football. All right, you ready for some Raiders talk?
Yeah, I think they're a really interesting team here with the Geno contract, and
I think the one thing the Raiders can't do is stick and pick at 6. I think that'd be such a mistake. This team has holes. I mean, Kyle, do you know who Ramel Keaton is? That's one of their starting receivers right now.
It could be Tyler McAllister, or Kyle Phillips.
You know,
Alex Bachman.
I'm just seeing holes all over this Raiders roster, whether that's at receiver, that's at running back, that's at linebacker.
There you explain Raheem Mostert.
Brother. That's D-tack. These are huge issues. And this team, based on their behaviors with the Geno deal, this team feels like
they're going to win.
They do. And I don't think they're being real honest about what this roster is. I think that is a team that should 100% thinking about moving back. Like, you don't need to stick and pick Tet McMillan or stick and pick a corner or stick and pick Ashton Genty or stick and pick Jahad Campbell. Like, you need all of those players to have a chance to be competitive, in my opinion. That's a team that I think should be really thinking about moving back.
Okay, so here's my challenge to you. Who are you moving back with?
That's obviously a great...
That's the biggest part of the problem, right? Is who has the capital and the incentive to go up to 6. That might be where it gets cheap, to be honest.
I don't know, you're Atlanta. You feel like you need a blue chip defensive player? Move up from 15?
They don't have a 3. So you're going
to give up
1546 and not pick again till 118?
I don't know. Atlanta that's a possibility.
What about Chicago from 10?
Modest move up.
They've got 39 and 41.
Maybe get ahead of the Jets. Get yourself your.
That might be, if the Raiders are posturing for Ashton Genty, maybe that's why they're posturing for Ashton Genty. So Chicago might be willing to go up and get him.
Ooh, that's interesting. Trading up for Genty. But you got to, you're Ben Johnson. You got to have your guy, man.
Got to have your guy.
You have all the other stuff, right? DJ Moore, Amon-Ra, Adunze's Tim Patrick. They need their speed receiver. They need to get the speed receiver. They don't have that guy yet.
Right. Well, there's
offensive lines in place.
39 or 41, draft Jalen Knoll, or so they should have an opportunity to get a speed guy.
Yeah.
But the running back's a big piece of the puzzle, and they've been attached to Ashton Genty, as have the Raiders. So I think that's an interesting commonality between two teams and an overlap of interest in for a team that might be motivated to come up that has 39, 41. They also have 72. So the thing I have a hard time at, if you're already light on day 2 draft capital, you moving up is effectively punting on the meat and strength of the draft class if you choose to do that.
Right. Teams do this stuff though. They're not always for me, but yeah.
They do. And I think in the case of like Minnesota, that's why I said for them, they might be candidate to do that because they're already so far gone. Like they pick at 24 and 97, right? Like at that point, you either got to get way back and take a way lesser player or just kind of say, hey, we like some of the guys that we brought in. We got young cornerstones. We got a quarterback that we're really excited about. We think we can get a piece.
What about the Colts as a trade-up team? Like, we know that they were video evidence of them trying to trade up last year. The Heat's got to be on Steichen and Ballard.
That might be a team that's trying to get in front of the Jets for Tyler Warren.
So maybe there's your natural opportunity. If Vegas sees them the way that I do, maybe they don't.
It's an interesting... Yeah, because I think you could point at any team and say, hey, this team should move down. This team needs more.
Of course.
49ers are like that. The Dolphins are like that.
49ers got a pretty good amount of picks, though, right? That's the interesting thing about them.
All right, so they have 11, 43, 75, 100, 113, 138, 147.
Pretty healthy.
Top 150. Yeah.
Yeah. They just draft a bunch of linemen. That's what they should do.
Okay. Contrast that to Miami. Miami has 13, 48, and 98 in the top 100. Now they have 2 4s and 2 5s and then 3 7s.
Miami feels like a trade back team,
But
because I think there's a number of logical ways they could go, right? Like
for the same logic as the Raiders. And what's interesting about where Miami sits too, I kind of did this a little bit on Locked On Dolphins yesterday. They're kind of at the cusp of that cutoff of like, how many first round grades do you hear are kind of consensus first round grade type players?
Yeah.
It's right around 15. They're at the tail end of that. Do they move out of that? They'd probably have to get a value in which they feel like is worth it to move out of potentially that strike zone unless they get on the board and they have 4 or 5 guys they really like still and say, we'll get one of them if we stay in the teens.
Have you done your don't trade away from list?
So I did my Dolphins specific grades and I had a list of 16 names and then 3 of them had a flag, either a medical flag or a character flag. And I said, well, in a perfect world, the math's going to guarantee you get one of these 13 guys.
Yeah. Which is one conversation, but the other part is who you don't trade away from. There's another line in the sand to draw.
Right. And I think it's probably the upper tier in that bucket, which is a shorter list. And I don't necessarily know that any of them are going to make it to you.
Well, some of the valuations are very, they're just really different. I think for D tackle and corner are 2 positions you think about with Miami where even like just some of the evaluations are different, I think Jahdae Barron's going to kind of go in that top 15, but I don't know. Kenneth Grant, I don't know.
Kenneth Grant continues to lose steam for just about everybody who's
falling out.
Or buzz.
Field Yates had the Bills getting him trading out of the first round. What?
Yeah.
How does okay?
Other potential trade up teams that make sense.
I think okay, so trade up teams.
Yeah. Denver.
I mean, yeah. I think that's a possibility. The challenge there is like we have to open our mind for a different player that's not Omarion Hampton. Doesn't feel like the world's ready to have that conversation.
How many eggs are we putting in the Evan Ingram basket is just the answer on a 1-year contract. Got paid handsomely, but what happens if Tyler Warren goes 7 and then the Colts are going to take Colston Loveland at 14?
You better trade with Miami. Get to 13.
I think the Chargers are another team that for the right player could maybe go get a guy. And the Rams are tough too because we've talked about them as a quarterback team, but they were also a team that was really into the idea of Brock Bowers last year. They tried to get that done. And Colston Loveland being another mismatch type player, like I don't know that they can get into the top 15 with their current draft capital situation unless they give away a big pick in 26. But could they try to get up in front of Denver and the Chargers if Loveland makes it past the Colts at 14?
It's interesting. We're talking about trading up for tight ends and running backs.
I think it's that kind of class. Where if you're a team that wants to be aggressive and has a spot that you think you've got a difference-making player in a class where Daniel Jeremiah said it yesterday. He said it's not necessarily a foundational or it's a starter draft. You should aspire to come away from this draft with 3 or 4 starters because they're out there as compared to star needle moving. So if you're one of those teams that's contending and you think you can get one of those star needle moving players in a class in which most teams are probably just going to be walking away with guys that are going to end up being potentially long-term starters for you, I think that's part of the motivation to move up the board. But you need more buyers in order to appease. There's a lot of teams that are incentivized to sell.
Right. Well, we know the Bills like to move up in the first round. They got 2 2s and 2 4s and 3
5s. Who's your short list of go up and get guys?
Will kinda Johnson.
Okay.
Shamar Stewart, maybe.
So Will's most likely range is New Orleans to Arizona, 9 through 16. Whole lot of potholes.
I think so.
So Buffalo potentially getting up into the top 16.
Maybe.
You said they have 2 picks in the late 50s.
Yeah, 56 and 62. But Bean loves to trade his 4th round pick. He never likes to pick in the 4th round. He's got 2 4th round picks.
Okay.
So I think about that. Like maybe it's a subtle move up the board for like Derek Harmon.
Well, okay, that's a good name to invoke because you think about maybe Washington, maybe Detroit.
It's teams that could draft Harmon or would trade.
Teams that could maybe draft Harmon, maybe Houston.
Houston for sure. Packers, Chargers. Yep. Yeah,
I think you've got there. That whole meet of teams in the 20s that maybe Denver's a move down team. Maybe the Chargers are a move down team. Maybe Green Bay's a move down team for Buffalo to go get a defensive tackle like that. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of ground here today on the show. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, we appreciate you guys as always for checking out Locked On NFL Scouting. We hope you will come back and see us again tomorrow. We are continuing to prep the draft 2 weeks out as of tomorrow. So we will be continuing onward with our prospect preview series, and we hope to see you then. Kyle Crabbs, Joe Marino, keep it locked in right here on Locked On NFL Scouting. We're out of here.